What can I say that's positive? I've got to think of something to say that's positive because I am losing it.
Something has Meri Brown absolutely spiraling, and the desperation is practically seeping through her social media posts. When someone who built their entire post-divorce brand on spilling family secrets suddenly starts talking about warriors and straight shit show weeks, you know the panic has officially set in. Sources close to the Brown family are whispering that Meri is in full damage control mode, and allegedly it all centers around what Christine might be about to expose in her tell-all book. Just this week, Meri posted one of the most telling Instagram captions we've seen from her yet. She wrote about finding out who your real warriors are when the storm rolls in, describing her week as a complete disaster filled with accusations, heartbreak, frustration, and chaos that, quote, just won't quit. The timing of this emotional outburst is raising serious eyebrows, especially since it coincided perfectly with Christine ramping up promotion for her upcoming book release. What makes this even more suspicious is how dramatically Meri's entire online persona has shifted in recent months. This is the same woman who spent the better part of 2 years doing live streams on TikTok, dishing dirt about everything from the Utah investigations to her messy divorce from Cody. She was practically an open book, answering viewer questions about years of family drama and airing grievances that had been buried for decades.
I had this bond with her, and I'm now questioning, why tell me that you want to have a relationship with me and then ghost me for months and months and months?
Insiders say she seemed to relish finally having a platform to tell her side of the story without the show's production constraints. But now she's singing a completely different tune, claiming she values her integrity too much to spill tea and talking about choosing peace over drama. The sudden personality transplant has fans scratching their heads and wondering what exactly has her so spooked. According to sources familiar with the situation, the shift happened right around the time Christine started dropping hints about the explosive content in her upcoming memoir. The most telling part of Meri's recent meltdown post was her emphasis on having friends who are allegedly, quote, truth tellers and soul healers who won't run from the storm. Reading between the lines, it sounds like someone is desperately trying to rally support before something big hits the fan. Multiple sources suggest that Meri has been reaching out to various people in recent weeks, possibly trying to get ahead of whatever bombshells Christine is planning to drop. What has everyone talking is the stark contrast between Meri's current claims about not wanting to spill tea and her recent history of doing exactly that. Just months ago, she was on TikTok live streams discussing intimate details about why she had to legally divorce Cody so he could adopt Robin's children. She openly shared stories about Christine's allegedly messy housekeeping and their disagreements about living arrangements. She even addressed the Utah investigation, though sources say she repeatedly made false claims about potential arrests that authorities never actually threatened. The transformation from tell-all queen to suddenly private has people wondering what exactly Christine knows that has Meri this rattled. Industry insiders speculate that advance readers or early excerpts might have already started circulating, giving certain family members a preview of what's coming. If that's the case, Meri's panicked posts make a lot more sense as preemptive damage control. But here's where it gets really interesting. While Meri is busy posting about her loyal warrior friends and claiming the high road, sources say the Brown family group chats have been absolutely explosive.
I mean, obviously, I'm in a different place. I'm moving forward with my life. I don't need to focus on healing a relationship.
Allegedly, there have been heated exchanges about boundaries, accountability, and what certain family members have the right to share publicly. The timing suggests that Christine's book might contain revelations that go far beyond the typical sister-wife drama we've seen play out on television, and that has someone very worried about what's about to come to light. The hypocrisy is absolutely mind-boggling when you really think about it. For months, Meri was the queen of TikTok tea, serving up piping hot family secrets like she was running her own personal gossip channel. Sources say she seemed almost giddy to finally have an unfiltered platform where she could air decades worth of grievances without network censors breathing down her neck. She did multiple live streams with various sister wives content creators and allegedly treated those sessions like her own personal therapy appointments, with a live audience of thousands. During one particularly revealing live session, Meri spilled intimate details about why she had to legally divorce Cody back in the day. She explained to viewers that there was no way Cody could have adopted Robin's children while being legally married to her, so she had to give up her legal wife status. She laid out the whole complicated arrangement like she was explaining a business transaction, completely contradicting her current claims about maintaining privacy and integrity. But that was just the beginning of her tell-all era. Insiders say Meri seemed almost addicted to the validation she got from finally being able to share her side of stories that had been twisted or ignored for years. She talked openly about the Utah investigation, though sources close to law enforcement say she repeatedly made false claims about potential arrests that authorities never actually threatened. She painted herself as a victim of persecution when the reality was apparently far more mundane. The most explosive content came when she started dishing about her relationship dynamics with the other wives.
But I would be the only one. And that's how it always was, or for, not always, but for many years before, I was the only one.
According to multiple sources, she shared stories about Christine's allegedly messy housekeeping habits and their disagreements about living arrangements in their Utah home. She told viewers that Christine specifically asked for the basement level because, and this is a direct quote, she, quote, didn't like to keep her house clean and knew that if visitors came to the front door, it would be Meri's clean living room they would see first. She also addressed years of drama between herself and Christine, airing grievances that went back decades. Sources say she seemed particularly eager to set the record straight about conflicts that had been glossed over or edited out of the show. The TikTok Lives became her personal vindication tour, where she could finally tell her version of events without anyone else controlling the narrative. What made her tea spilling even more dramatic was how she seemed to relish the engagement from viewers. She would answer direct questions about family drama, respond to comments asking for more details, and even tease future revelations. Multiple sources suggest she was getting a rush from the attention and validation after years of being portrayed as the difficult wife on the show. Then something shifted dramatically. Almost overnight, Meri went from being an open book to claiming she valued her integrity too much to spill family secrets. The timing of this transformation is what has everyone raising eyebrows, because it coincided perfectly with Christine announcing her book deal and starting to share snippets about what she planned to reveal. Suddenly, the woman who had been serving tea like it was her full-time job was talking about choosing peace and taking the high road. The passive-aggressive energy radiating from Meri's recent posts is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Just weeks before Christine's book launch, Meri suddenly started posting videos about how she's choosing not to spill tea because she values her integrity and wants to maintain her peace. But here's the thing that has everyone talking. The timing and tone made it crystal clear that these weren't just general life philosophy posts. Sources say these videos felt like direct shots at her former sister wives, particularly Christine. In one particularly telling TikTok, Meri claimed that just because she's gone through a divorce and grieved that relationship doesn't mean she has the right to tell other people how to grieve or give advice. She emphasized how important it was for her to stick to her integrity and not spill tea, even though she admitted there was definitely tea to be spilled. The subtext was deafening. She was clearly positioning herself as the morally superior one while simultaneously throwing shade at others who were choosing a different path. The comment section absolutely erupted, with fans calling out the obvious hypocrisy. One viewer wrote that they respected her choice but pointed out that everyone has their own healing journey, and it wasn't fair to question anyone's integrity for having a different path. They specifically mentioned that it was unfair to imply that Christine or Janelle lacked integrity if they chose to share their stories. Interestingly, sources say Meri actually liked that comment, which suggests she knew exactly how her posts were being interpreted. Another commenter was even more direct, writing that Christine and Janelle had every right to tell their story the way they wanted to, and that all the women deserved not to be shamed either way. The response from fans was overwhelmingly critical of what they perceived as Meri's attempt to shame her former sister wives while positioning herself as taking the high road. Multiple sources say the backlash was swift and harsh. Perhaps the most telling comment came from someone who suggested that Meri seemed to be protecting Cody on some level, noting that she appeared to direct her anger at her fellow sister wives rather than at him. This observation hit particularly hard because it highlighted a pattern that many fans had noticed. Meri's criticism seemed consistently aimed at the other women rather than the man who was allegedly at the center of their shared trauma. The timing of these integrity posts was what really got people's attention. They started appearing right around the time Christine began sharing audio clips on social media, reading excerpts from her upcoming book. Sources close to the family suggest that Meri may have gotten wind of what Christine was planning to reveal, and these posts were her way of trying to get ahead of potential revelations, while simultaneously trying to shame Christine into staying quiet. What makes this whole situation even more suspicious is how calculated these posts seemed. According to insiders, Meri appeared to be very deliberately crafting a narrative where she was the mature, evolved one who had moved past the need for public vindication, while implying that anyone who chose differently was somehow lacking in character or integrity. If you want to understand why Meri is in full panic mode about Christine's upcoming book, you need to look back at what happened the last time Christine put pen to paper about their family dynamics. In the original Becoming Sister Wives book, Christine didn't hold back when it came to detailing her conflicts with Meri, and sources say those revelations created lasting damage to Meri's reputation that she's still trying to repair years later. The most explosive sections of that first book centered around Christine's allegations about Meri's harsh treatment of the children who weren't biologically hers. Christine wrote candidly about disputes over disciplinary methods and described fights they had about how Meri interacted with her kids. According to multiple sources familiar with the book's content, Christine detailed specific incidents where she felt Meri crossed the line in her treatment of the Brown children. The bombshell moment came when Christine revealed that she had actually told Meri to stay away from her children at one point. She allegedly accused Meri of treating her kids badly and trying to discipline them in ways that Christine fundamentally disagreed with. Sources say this wasn't just a casual disagreement about parenting styles. Christine apparently felt strongly enough about Meri's behavior that she drew a hard boundary and essentially banned her from interacting with her children. These revelations from the first book created a firestorm that Meri is allegedly still dealing with today. Industry insiders suggest that the fallout from those accusations damaged relationships within the family and created lasting tensions that never fully healed. The fact that Christine was willing to go public with such serious allegations about Meri's treatment of children showed she wasn't going to pull punches when it came to protecting her kids. What has sources particularly concerned is that Christine's new book is being marketed as even more revealing and honest than the first one. If she was willing to make those kinds of allegations in a book that was written while the family was still together and the show was at its peak, what might she be willing to share now that all bets are off? Multiple insiders suggest that Christine feels freed from the constraints that might have held her back before. The pattern is already emerging with Christine's recent social media posts about finally having the courage to write and share her truth. Sources say Meri is reportedly terrified that this new book will not only rehash the old allegations, but potentially include new details or incidents that weren't shared before. The stakes feel much higher this time around because there's no longer any incentive for Christine to protect family harmony or the show's image. With everything already blown up, she apparently feels free to tell the whole unvarnished truth about what life was really like in that polygamous household. The abuse allegations against Meri aren't just coming from one source, they're coming from multiple Brown children. And the accusations are absolutely devastating. What started as whispered concerns has exploded into a chorus of voices detailing alleged patterns of emotional, verbal, and potentially physical abuse that sources say went on for years within the Brown household. Mykelti Brown was one of the first to speak out publicly, posting a video on her Patreon where she detailed her alleged experiences with Meri. According to sources familiar with the content, Mykelti described Meri as being very emotionally and verbally abusive to all the children when they were younger. She allegedly stated that the abuse only stopped when the kids got old enough to fight back or became too old for Meri to continue targeting them. What makes Mykelti's allegations particularly chilling is her claim that she believes she got the brunt of it and that her siblings have repeatedly told her they think she received the worst treatment from Meri. Sources say Mykelti also revealed that while she doesn't remember Meri being physically abused to her personally, the emotional and verbal abuse was severe enough to create lasting trauma that affects her adult relationships to this day. Gwendolyn Brown has also allegedly come forward with her own disturbing claims, stating that she witnessed Meri get physically violent with Mykelti at least once. Multiple sources suggest that Gwendolyn's testimony is particularly significant because she was reportedly an eyewitness to incidents rather than just sharing her own personal experiences. The accusations get even more serious with Paedon Brown, who sources say has described abuse that allegedly went far past verbal abuse. While the specific details of his claims haven't been fully disclosed, insiders suggest that his allegations paint an even darker picture of what allegedly happened in that household when the cameras weren't rolling. Perhaps the most damning statement came from Maddie Brown, who allegedly called Meri a monster and an abuser, according to multiple sources. The fact that multiple adult children are independently making similar allegations has created a pattern that's becoming harder for defenders to dismiss as isolated incidents or misunderstandings. What has everyone talking is how these allegations align with the historical conflicts Christine detailed in the first book about Meri's treatment of children who weren't biologically hers. Sources suggest that what Christine witnessed and objected to may have been just the tip of the iceberg, and that the full scope of alleged abuse is only now coming to light as the adult children feel safe enough to speak their truth. The question everyone is asking is whether Christine's new book will finally provide the missing pieces to this horrifying puzzle. Meri's recent Warrior Friends post reads like a textbook case of someone desperately trying to shore up their defense before the bombs start dropping. The timing of this emotional outburst, coming right as Christine ramps up her book promotion, has sources saying it's clearly preemptive damage control disguised as gratitude for friendship. Let's break down what Meri actually wrote, because the desperation is practically dripping from every word. She posted about how this week has been a straight shit show, filled with accusations, heartbreak, frustration, mistakes, chaos that just won't quit. According to insiders, this wasn't just a bad week at work. This was someone who knows something big is coming and is already feeling the heat from whatever revelations are about to drop. The most telling part of her post was the emphasis on having friends who are allegedly truth tellers, soul healers, and solution strategists who won't flinch at the mess or run from the storm. Sources say this reads like someone who's been frantically calling around to make sure her support system is locked and loaded for whatever's about to hit. The language about not running from the storm suggests she knows exactly what storm is brewing. What has people talking is the calculated nature of this post. According to multiple sources, Meri seemed to be very deliberately crafting a narrative where she's surrounded by loyal people who believe in her character. The timing suggests she's trying to get these supportive voices on record before any new allegations surface in Christine's book. But here's what makes this defense strategy particularly problematic. As one commenter pointed out, not all of these warrior friends have had their children raised by Meri. It's easy to have ride-or-die loyalty when you've never experienced the alleged behavior that multiple Brown children have described. Sources suggest that Meri may be leaning heavily on friends who only know her current reformed version, rather than people who witnessed her past actions. The post also reveals just how rattled Meri apparently is by whatever's coming. The language about accusations suggests she's already hearing whispers about what Christine might reveal, and the emphasis on having people who won't abandon her when things get messy implies she's expecting things to get very messy indeed. Industry insiders are reading this as classic crisis management, getting positive character witnesses on record before the real damage begins. The question is whether this preemptive strike will be enough to weather whatever storm Christine is about to unleash. Here's where this whole situation gets absolutely explosive. Paedon Brown has allegedly been sitting on information about Meri that he claims would be so damaging it could cancel Sister Wives entirely. According to multiple sources, he's promised to reveal whatever he knows once the show officially ends, and insiders say this bombshell revelation specifically involves Meri and something that happened in the past. The fact that Paedon is allegedly holding back information until the show wraps tells you everything you need to know about how serious these claims might be. Sources suggest that TLC and the production company have significant financial stakes riding on the show's continued success, and any scandal explosive enough to threaten that revenue stream would involve some truly devastating allegations. What has people speculating wildly is the $50,000 question. Literally, industry insiders are whispering about potential financial implications if certain allegations come to light. Whether that's related to potential lawsuits, lost endorsement deals, or the show's advertising revenue remains unclear. But sources say there are definitely financial stakes involved that go well beyond just Meri's personal reputation. The timing of Paedon's promise is particularly significant because it suggests he's been strategically waiting for the right moment to speak his truth. According to people familiar with the situation, he's allegedly been very careful about what he shares publicly while the show is still generating income for the family. The fact that he's willing to stay quiet temporarily suggests the information he's sitting on is serious enough to potentially destroy livelihoods. What makes this even more intriguing is that Paedon isn't the only Brown child who seems to be holding back information. Sources say there's been a pattern of the adult children being very careful about how much they reveal, while the show is still airing. The implication is that there are multiple bombshells waiting to drop once the financial constraints are removed. Meri's recent panic posts start to make a lot more sense when you consider that she might know exactly what Paedon is planning to reveal. If she's aware that there's damaging information being held in reserve until the show ends, her desperate attempts to control the narrative and rally support become much more understandable. The question everyone is asking is whether Christine's book will force Paedon's hand earlier than planned. If her revelations are explosive enough, sources suggest it might create enough public pressure for him to break his silence before the show officially wraps, potentially triggering the very scenario he was trying to avoid. Understanding the dynamics of abuse in polygamous families is crucial to grasping why this situation is so explosive and why Meri might be desperately trying to avoid accountability. According to experts who study these family structures, there's often a toxic trickle-down effect where trauma and abuse filter through the hierarchy, with women taking out their frustrations on children who aren't biologically theirs. In polygamous households, sources say the competition for resources and attention creates an environment where displaced anger often gets redirected toward the most vulnerable family members, the children. When wives feel powerless in their relationships with their shared husband, that powerlessness allegedly sometimes manifests as control and dominance over other women's children. Multiple experts suggest this pattern is tragically common in these family structures. What makes the Brown family situation particularly complex is how the alleged abuse patterns seem to align with the power dynamics that existed within their specific arrangement. Sources familiar with polygamous family structures say that Meri's position as the first wife would have given her certain authority, but her inability to have more biological children may have created resentment and insecurity that allegedly got taken out on the other wives' kids. The fact that multiple brown children are independently describing similar experiences with Meri suggests this wasn't isolated incidents, but potentially a systematic pattern of behavior. According to people who study these family dynamics, when abuse becomes normalized within a household, it often continues unchecked for years because the victims are taught that speaking out would destroy the family unit. What has experts particularly concerned is how this alleged pattern of abuse was apparently hidden from public view for so long. Sources say that in polygamous families, there's often intense pressure to maintain a perfect public image, which means serious problems get swept under the rug. The children allegedly learn early that family loyalty means staying silent about what happens behind closed doors. Meri's current attempts to reshape her narrative and avoid accountability fit perfectly into what experts describe as typical patterns when these family structures finally start to unravel. According to sources familiar with these dynamics, there's often a desperate scramble to control the story once victims start speaking out, with abusers positioning themselves as the real victims of unfair persecution. The tragedy is that while adults like Meri had choices about participating in these family structures, the children had no say in being born into this environment. Sources say the brown kids are now dealing with the aftermath of a system that allegedly failed to protect them, and their courage in speaking out is forcing long overdue conversations about what really happened in that household when the cameras stopped rolling. The social media chatter around Meri and the upcoming abuse revelations has reached a fever pitch, with fan theories exploding across every platform as people try to piece together what Christine's book might actually reveal. According to sources monitoring the online conversations, there's been a noticeable escalation in discussions about the abuse allegations, and the timing coincides perfectly with Meri's increasingly defensive behavior. Reddit threads dedicated to sister wives have been absolutely buzzing with speculation about what specific incidents Christine might detail in her memoir. Multiple sources say longtime viewers are connecting dots between past episodes, the children's recent statements, and Christine's previous revelations about telling Meri to stay away from her kids. The theories range from detailed timelines of alleged incidents to speculation about why certain children seem to avoid Meri in later seasons. What has the online community particularly fired up is the pattern they're seeing in Meri's responses to mounting pressure. Fan communities are dissecting every social media post, looking for clues about what she might be trying to get ahead of. According to people following these discussions, there's a growing consensus that Meri's behavior suggests she knows something explosive is coming and is desperately trying to control the narrative before it breaks wide open. The TikTok comment sections on Meri's recent posts have become battlegrounds, with viewers calling out what they see as her attempts to preemptively shame Christine while positioning herself as the victim. Sources say the backlash has been swift and harsh, with many people pointing out the hypocrisy of someone who spent months spilling family secrets suddenly claiming moral superiority about not telling tales. Perhaps most damaging to Meri's reputation is how fans are now re-examining old episodes and interviews with fresh eyes. Multiple sources say viewers are going back through years of footage, looking for signs they might have missed about the alleged abuse. Comment sections are filled with people sharing moments they remember feeling uncomfortable about Meri's interactions with the children, creating a growing narrative that the signs were allegedly there all along. The speculation has also extended to what financial impact these revelations might have on Meri's business ventures and social media presence. Industry insiders suggest that her clothing company and influencer deals could be at serious risk if the allegations gain more traction. Sources familiar with brand partnerships say companies are already reportedly keeping a close eye on the situation and how it develops. What's particularly telling is how the online conversation has shifted from general sister wives drama to focused concern about child welfare and accountability. Multiple sources say this represents a significant escalation that goes beyond typical reality TV gossip into serious allegations that could have real-world consequences for everyone involved. So what happens next for Meri Brown as Christine's book launch looms and the abuse allegations continue to gain momentum? Sources close to the situation suggest she's essentially trapped between a rock and a hard place, with no easy path forward that doesn't involve some level of public reckoning with her alleged past behavior. The most telling indicator of what's coming might be Meri's increasingly erratic social media behavior. According to insiders, her posts are becoming more defensive and desperate, suggesting she knows the walls are closing in. The fact that she's already talking about accusations and needing warriors implies she's bracing for impact from revelations that could be even more damaging than what's already been shared. Industry experts suggest that Meri essentially has three options moving forward, and none of them are particularly appealing. She could continue her current strategy of deflection and denial, hoping the storm passes without destroying her reputation and business ventures. She could get ahead of Christine's book by addressing the allegations directly and taking accountability for her past actions, or she could go on the offensive and try to discredit the accusers. Though sources say that strategy would likely backfire spectacularly, given the number of children making similar claims. The financial stakes make this decision even more complicated. Multiple sources suggest that Meri's clothing business and social media presence generate significant income that could be jeopardized if the abuse allegations gain more traction. Brand partnerships and sponsorship deals are reportedly already under review, with companies watching closely to see how this situation develops. What has insiders particularly concerned is how Paedon's promised revelations might factor into this timeline. If Christine's book contains information that contradicts or challenges what Paedon has been holding back, sources say it could force his hand and create a domino effect of disclosures that Meri might not be prepared to handle. The broader question is whether Meri will finally be forced to confront the alleged patterns of abuse that multiple brown children have described, or if she'll continue to hide behind claims of persecution and misunderstanding. According to experts who study these family dynamics, true healing for everyone involved requires acknowledgement and accountability, not deflection and damage control. As Christine's book hits shelves in the coming weeks, sources say the Sister Wives community is holding its breath to see just how explosive the revelations will be. Will Meri's desperate attempts at preemptive damage control be enough to weather the storm, or is she about to face a reckoning that's been decades in the making? The answer might determine not just her future, but whether the truth about what allegedly happened to those children finally gets the attention it deserves.